History is not a series of sudden moments. It is built quietly through habits, systems, and decisions repeated over time. Before there were nations, before borders hardened and rules were enforced, people lived, worked, competed, and organized their world in ways that felt natural to them. This series explores those early patterns, not through heroes or headlines, but through the structures that formed beneath everyday life. These are the echoes that shaped the world we recognize today. Around 2200 BCE, the world was no longer experimenting with permanence. Cities stood firmly along river banks. Authority had solidified into kingship and bureaucracy. Monumental construction marked landscapes. Trade networks extended across regions. Structure had worked. For centuries, centralized organization brought stability, growth, and identity. Systems of irrigation, taxation, labor coordination, and ritual authority appeared durable. But durability is not the same as resilience. Across multiple regions of the world, signs of strain began appearing. Climate patterns shifted. Flood cycles grew unpredictable. Trade routes faltered. Population density intensified pressure on land and water. These changes did not unfold simultaneously everywhere, but they converged within the same historical moment. The question of this year was not how to build permanence. It was how permanence responds when stability disappears. Before disruption, daily life within organized states followed established rhythm. Administration collected surplus, labor was scheduled and directed. Religious authority reinforced legitimacy. Roles were inherited and understood. Cities functioned predictably. Markets operated within known boundaries. Irrigation systems were maintained seasonally. Architecture projected continuity. Writing preserved memory and obligation. Authority felt secure. Leadership was institutional rather than personal. Systems outlived individuals. Governance relied on routine rather than improvisation. Trade linked regions. Materials travelled long distances. Specialization increased. Interdependence grew between communities, separated by geography, but connected by exchange. Culture reflected stability. Belief systems emphasized order, divine mandate, and continuity. Identity was tied to structure. Participation reinforced hierarchy. This world depended on repetition. The same processes, repeated year after year, created expectation. And expectation created confidence. But confidence can obscure vulnerability. When systems become normal, their fragility is harder to see. Pressure in this era emerged from environment and scale. Climate fluctuations altered river behavior. Floods became less predictable in some regions, more destructive in others. Agricultural output declined unevenly. Shortages followed. Surplus, once assumed, became uncertain. Storage could not compensate indefinitely. Trade networks strained under reduced production. Population density amplified impact. Crowded cities required steady supply. When supply faltered, conflict increased. Authority faced challenges it had not recently encountered. External migration intensified strain. Communities displaced by environmental change moved toward established regions. Boundaries hardened. Competition increased. Systems built for stability struggled to adapt. Bureaucracy moved slowly. Monumental authority did not respond quickly to crisis. Legitimacy weakened when divine order seemed absent. Pressure revealed what permanence had hidden. Complexity increases vulnerability, and vulnerability tests structure. Faced with disruption, systems attempted adaptation. Administrators redistributed resources. rulers reinforced authority through ritual and construction. Laws were clarified. Records documented shortage and response. In some regions, centralization intensified. Power concentrated further as leaders sought control. Enforcement increased, boundaries hardened. Elsewhere, fragmentation began, cities declined, trade networks collapsed, authority decentralized as regions isolated themselves. Not every system failed. Some adapted through flexibility. Smaller political units proved more responsive. Trade routes shifted rather than vanished. The global pattern was uneven. But one reality became clear. Permanence does not guarantee survival. Systems that endure must also adjust. Where adjustment was slow, collapse followed. Where adjustment was possible, continuity survived. Authority during crisis becomes visible in new ways. When stability falters, legitimacy is tested. Leaders must explain disruption. Ritual must justify hardship. Enforcement must compensate for uncertainty. In some regions, rulers fell. In others, authority reshaped itself. Titles changed. Governance structures reorganized. New leadership emerged from instability. Architecture shifted as well. Construction slowed or ceased in places under strain. Resources were redirected. Monuments became symbols of a past order rather than present confidence. People adapted differently depending on scale. Large centralized states struggled with inertia. Smaller communities moved more quickly. Decentralized authority sometimes proved resilient. Authority under strain reveals its limits. Power that appears permanent can fracture rapidly when confidence declines. And once fractured, reconstruction rarely restores the original form. Crisis reshaped culture. When systems broke, people redefined identity. Some societies internalized caution. Belief systems incorporated disruption into cosmology. Authority became more conditional. Elsewhere, memory of collapse reinforced future centralization. Stability became more aggressively defended. Law tightened, boundaries hardened. Culture absorbs failure as deeply as success. Stories preserved lessons. Ritual adapted. Authority re-legitimized itself through reinterpretation. Importantly, collapse did not end civilization, it transformed it. New political units formed, trade routes reorganized, belief systems evolved. Innovation emerged from necessity. Culture locked in around resilience. The world after 2200 BCE did not reject structure, it reimagined it. And that reimagining shaped every future state. The disruptions around 2200 BCE demonstrated a lasting truth. Complex systems are powerful, but fragile. Environmental pressure, migration, and economic strain can destabilize even long-standing authority. Future civilizations would inherit both the structures and the warnings of this era. Collapse became part of historical memory, and from that memory emerged adaptation. Stability would never again be assumed without awareness of risk. Systems would grow more complex, but also more conscious of vulnerability. The echoes of this crisis would shape empires yet to rise. The past does not disappear when events end. It settles into routines, assumptions, and institutions. What begins as response becomes tradition. What feels temporary becomes normal. By tracing how structure forms and authority takes hold, we begin to see why later choices feel limited and why certain paths seem unavoidable. The world we recognize was not built all at once. It emerged through patterns repeated until they felt permanent. These are not just moments behind us, they are echoes that continue forward.